We know Northrend is becoming relevant again. It's all coming together now. And these conspiracy theories that people have been laying out for quite a while are actually becoming true. The oldest conspiracy theory turned out to be true. Let's see what this is all about here from Necro Warrior.
Over a dozen books, countless short stories, comics, and an endless
Necro
number
War, I
of
should say.
in-game tales, quests. That's Warcraft. A vast universe layered with 30 years of storytelling, but much of its lore remains unclear, leaving players puzzled.
This part of the lore, the Dreadlords are still very cool because they're still very mysterious. What is going on with them? They're like we literally delved into the realm of death. Now people are saying that that was all fake and it's a Titan construct of the realm of death and it's not real death. Okay, that's fine. But we've gotten into so much mysterious lore that's no longer mysterious. The Titans themselves used to be mysterious. No longer. We know so much more about them. The Void Lords used to be mysterious. Guess what? We just fought one. Not that mysterious anymore. But the Dreadlords. The Dreadlords are still evading us. They still have that sense of, what are they doing? What are they up to? What's their end goal? Why is Sire Denathrius telling me to get on my knees? Like all these questions that we don't have answers to, the Dreadlords remain that mysterious part of lore, which is why, to me, why they're still the most interesting part of the lore that's left.
And inspiring theories that often proved to be nonsense, yet some of them, against all odds, ended up being true, at least in part. In this video, I want to talk about the theories that, over time, proved to be at least partially correct. We first met the Nathrezim in Warcraft 3. Even then, it was clear that they were slippery, shrewd manipulators. They could assume the guise of mortals and mislead entire factions. The Nathrezim
Man,
are
you
masters
guys remember when the whole theory about Gallywix being a Dreadlord was a thing? That would have been so much better than what we got. I mean, literally, we got him like he was on his period. He had a fucking rage, kicked his own mech suit, and it fell on top of him. Very anticlimactic. The whole Dreadlord reveal, that would have been badass. Like, you didn't have to tell us any plans or anything. It's just like, whoa, this guy was a Dreadlord? What the hell are they up to? Bam, he flies away again. We don't get to find out. That would have been so much better. Unfortunate.
of deception and shapeshifting. And as you know, they were a significant aid to the Burning Legion during the Third War. They steered key characters to serve their own ends like puppeteers, and just as effectively eliminated those who stood in their way. But were they always servants of the Burning
Dino's own
Legion,
machine was
or
perfect?
did they just pretend to be on the same side? In the old lore, we knew that the Nathrezim had long been allies and servants of the Burning Legion, and not in any minor capacity. For thousands of years, they helped the demons sow discord among civilizations across countless worlds. But it wasn't always this way. A long time ago, even before Sargeras betrayed the Pantheon, he and the other Titans fought against demons throughout the universe.
Right.
The Dreadlords were among those demons. They roamed.
They were not demons, though. We finally found out they're not demons. They just fought alongside them. Why? We don't really know. Why Sargeras, as he said, was doing what he was chasing after the Burning Legion. Well, we knew the Burning Legion is chaotic. The demons are chaotic. It didn't become the Burning Legion until he took over. But demons in general and the Twisting Nether, it's all chaos. And, you know, Titans are very much anti-chaos. So they were chasing down these guys. He was killing them, and they were constantly coming back, which pissed him off, and then he realized what was going on. But the Dreadlords were there. And why were the Dreadlords there? I think the main theory is they were really there because they were baiting Sargeras out to fight the demons so they could eventually corrupt him, right? The Dreadlords are whispering in his ear, there's bad things are coming, all this is going to happen, watch out for the void. They were the kind of manipulating him into finally becoming the leader of the Burning, what would become the Burning Legion, and going on his Burning Crusade. Now again, why did they want him to do that? We don't know. We just don't know.
The cosmos, feeding on rage, despair, and even the energies of the void, the Titans managed to capture many Dreadlords and other demons, imprisoning them on the prison world of Mardum. However, not all demons were locked away in the planetary prison. The Pantheon continued their work. On one planet corrupted by the old gods, Sargeras encountered Dreadlords who were feeding on dark energy. Sargeras interrogated them, and they revealed that the Void Lords had unleashed the old gods into the universe to corrupt world souls, ultimately aiming to create a truly dark and terrifying entity.
And there you go. I mean, the Nathrezim, aka the Dreadlords, don't say things unless there's a motivation behind it. So they revealed this truth, which actually did turn out to be true. They revealed this fact to Sargeras. There was a reason for it. They wanted him to get rid of old gods, maybe. They wanted him to destroy Void Lords. Who knows what the reason is? We will eventually find out where the Dreadlords lie on the site of, void versus light versus. I think they're just sitting there neutral, waiting to see which side wins. But there was a clear motivation for them to unleash Sargeras and his fury on the void.
This was the breaking point in Sargeras' history. He resolved that the only way to stop the void was to destroy all life in the universe. Thus began his descent, and later his betrayal of the Pantheon. To achieve his goal of destroying life, he decided
If they're not, if Dreadlords are not a demon, then why do they return like a demon does? You can only kill them in the Nether. I don't know. I can't answer that question. I don't know what their attachment is to the twisting Nether. But they're a sub. I don't know if they're a sub race or what, or a different race of demons. But they're Nathrezim. They're completely different. In that they, even when you kill them, their animation's a bit different, right? Like they have this whole different animation that happens when you kill them. So they are different. The father of Dreadlords is Sire Denathrius, so he created them. Where the fuck did he come from? Nobody really knows yet. It's an interesting one.
to create an unbeatable army, an army of demons. He shattered the prison world, Mardum, and began recruiting the imprisoned demons into the Burning Legion. In other words, the Nathrezim were not Sargeras' friends before the Burning Legion, and it's not certain that they remained loyal after its formation. Players occasionally suspected that the Nathrezim might be playing their own game, merely pretending that the Burning Legion was their flawless leader. Speculation about the demons' true allegiance arose throughout many expansions. These suspicions intensified after the release of Battle for Azeroth, which saw the return of one of the most sinister and enigmatic bosses, Illidan. This boss was known for his ominous whispers, which contained far more meaning than initially met the eye. For players and lore enthusiasts, he was a perfect subject for speculation. One of the lines he spoke was, "The cunning ones kneel before 6 masters, but serve only one." Players identified the cunning ones as the Nathrezim, as everyone knows cunning is their main weapon. The 6 masters were a little more complex, but were generally assumed to be the 6 cosmic forces. However, who the single master they bowed to remained completely unclear. The phrase heavily hinted that it might not be the Burning Legion. For example, in one forum post, the author—
Yeah, here it is. So, I mean, unlike demons, which basically are like formations of the Twisting Nether, they're almost like chaos manifest. You can see here, like from WoW Wiki, Dreadlords are not created that way. They didn't originate the same way that demons do. It's in the lore that Sire Denathrius created them. It says here, Sire Denathrius, the ruler of the realm of Revendreth in the Shadowlands. By the way, is he really? How the hell did he even end up there? Originally created the Nathrezim for the purpose of spreading the influence of death throughout the cosmos by infiltrating the other cosmic forces. As such, they are closely related to the Venthyr. Denathrius later pretended to exile the Dreadlords from the Shadowlands, but they secretly remained in service to him as an ally to Zoval the Jailer. Many Nathrezim become demons, and so they became demons and settled in the world of Nathreza and the Twisting Nether, later becoming prominent members of the Burning Legion. So yeah, they are not formed the same way as demons. They became demons. I don't know if you can race change that way, but that's what it says here. And then maybe that's their attachment to the Twisting. Somehow they attach themselves to the Twisting Nether. But again, their origins are very different from your typical WoW demon.
Narrowed down the cosmic forces the Nathrezim might truly serve to 3: life, death, and order. Since the Nathrezim are known to possess necromantic skills, death seemed the most likely candidate. A similar conclusion was reached in another article attempting to decipher the boss's phrases. Another interesting hint was dropped by the developers in the comic Ashbringer, which was released towards the end of the expansion. In one scene, a Dreadlord killed a crusader of the Scarlet Crusade to steal his body, which he then used to manipulate and radicalize the entire faction. As a parting shot, the dying crusader asked who he was. The Dreadlord replied that he was a Nathrezim and that he existed between the world of the living and the world of the dead. The truth truly began to unravel in the next expansion, Shadowlands. We journeyed to Revendreth and met the charismatic Sire Denathrius.
That's right.
A hint confirming
a role that is still going to be played out. Sire Denathrius, he's certainly going to become relevant again at some point. He's sitting there in Remornia, doing his thing as Dreadlords took him away, and the Dreadlord conspiracy lives on.
Connection between the Nathrezim and death appeared at the very start of the expansion. A book titled Enemy Infiltration was found in Revendreth. It was a report, presumably from a Nathrezim to their master. Since the zone was directly connected to Sire Denathrius and there were many hints linking the two entities, he was assumed to be the master. The report mentioned that every force the agents had studied had its vulnerabilities, and that, in general, each of them could be destroyed. A short quote reads, "We suspect some targets will prove more difficult than others. But every force is vulnerable to specific manipulation, and our agents are already embedded in the enemy's ranks. After all, that is..."
Little Thraxian. Just saying. People have already been spoiling me in the comment sections of my videos, talking about how he's not bad, he loses his mind to the light, and that's why he does the shit he does. I would like to think that that was always his plan, and that's kind of him trying to make it look like the light can be bad. Like, whatever the fucking Dreadlords do, even when they supposedly lose their minds, I don't trust them. I don't trust them. I feel like it's all a play, it's all a gambit, and they're just fucking doing shit according to the plans. They're moving the pieces on the chessboard, and we think this guy's just losing his mind to the light.
the purpose for which you made us.
It's all part of the
Patch
plan.
9.1 finally provided answers to the fans' questions. In a new questline, the connection between the Nathrazim, Death, and Denathrius became crystal clear. A character revealed that ages ago, Denathrius created the Dreadlords as a weapon, capable of bringing the influence of death to his enemies and to the world of the living. One of the newly created race's missions was to infiltrate all the cosmic forces, learn their vulnerabilities, and be ready to strike. Thus, technically, their service to the Burning Legion all along was not a true desire, but merely part of a much larger game. What exactly is our Azeroth? In the early days and older expansions, players didn't really think about it. It was simply a planet that first drew the attention of orcs from another world, and later the Burning Legion. Only now do we know that Azeroth's very essence is tied to the Titans, and that one of the upcoming expansions, The Last Titan, will likely reveal more about the world's soul. But back in the early days, players had no such understanding, and could only speculate wildly about the nature of our planet. For that, we can thank Yogg-Saron, the old god we faced during Wrath of the Lich King. One of his lines was, "The end of days is finally upon you, and all who inhabit this miserable little seedling." The mention of a seedling immediately caught players' attention.
Interesting, yeah. He called it a seedling, and we found out, like, it kind of is. It's the seed is Azeroth, right? And she is growing within it, and our end times are upon us. Yeah, crazy that all those whispers from all those years ago become relevant again.
What did he mean by that? This line was spoken long before the Chronicles were ever published, and long before players had any idea about the existence of Azeroth's
World Souls and all that stuff,
that slumbering essence deep within the planet, which would one day be revealed as the very reason Sargeras and the other Titans turned their gaze toward our world in the first place. It was a time when such mysteries were left entirely to imagination. Another figure who deepened this mystery was Algalon, the celestial observer sent by the Titans to assess Azeroth after...
This was when we first realized that the Titans can be kind of messed up and they don't really give a shit about us. That whole re-origination chamber, we realized that the Titans are willing to sacrifice us and completely clear the planet of life if it means stopping the planet from falling to the void. So we were just sacrificial lambs in their eyes, puny little things that can be sent away in a heartbeat and destroyed. So that was our first inkling that, wait a minute, I thought these guys were supposed to be like, we were supposed to be like their children, their offspring, and they're supposed to love us. They don't. This was our first realization of that.
The death of one of its keepers. After his defeat, he revealed that he had witnessed the Titans' cleansing flames consume entire...
Rage.
We have a realm to destroy.
Thank you for the follow, man. Welcome to our Scourge.
Worlds, extinguishing countless lives. But Azeroth was different. Its people were imperfect, unpredictable. And yet, that very imperfection changed.
Unpredictable and unorderly. That's right. As we noticed it with the Earthen too. As they fall away from their Titan designs, they become more disorderly. They start having willpower and all this other stuff. So yeah, that's been a problem for the Titans for quite a while.
His perspective. At the time, the lore surrounding the Titans was still developing, and fans were left to connect the dots on their own. But one thing was clear. Azeroth was hiding something far greater than anyone realized. At one BlizzCon, a player directly asked what Algalon's words meant and what was really going on with the world. The developer's response was long, but one comment from Dave Kosak stood out. He hinted that there's something unique about Azeroth in the cosmology, and it's not by accident that so much revolves around it. As the years went by, hints about Azeroth's deeper nature only grew. Pandaria added even more pieces to the puzzle. The Mogu, as it turned out, were children of the Titans, and Wrathion, after completing a quest for the legendary cloak, fell into a strange trance and spoke in a completely different voice.
Yeah, well, didn't he eat the heart of he ate like a piece of the old gods or something, if I remember right.
I see them, a million worlds glittering in perfection, one above all others. We have fallen. We must rebuild the final Titan. Do not forget. That cryptic line fueled endless speculation.
If you remember Rathian, by the way, his motivations at this time in the game were to either destroy the Horde or destroy the Alliance. And he didn't care which one won. He just wanted to pick the winning side because he believed that only one side in full unity would be able to destroy whatever the threat is that's coming. And we've heard this line or this trope a million times before in World of Warcraft. Even the Lich King, right? Arthas, he believed that a world in undeath, united in undeath, would be, a stronger world. Now, were his motivations pure or good? No. But he saw that was the issue. And then finally, you get to the bald-headed, big-nipple man jailer, Zoval, and his final words were, "A cosmos divided cannot stop what is to come." Again, I always say it, his final word was come. And what that all meant is it's kind of the same trope here. We've seen it a million times. There's a big threat coming, and if we are not united to defeat that threat, then we will die. That's the whole thing. So it's a string that has continued on and a conspiracy that people have built on for a long time.
Who was this
We
final
thought the threat was the
Titan?
Void Lords,
What
was
did
it?
he mean by
I don't
we
know.
have fallen?
Might be the
Articles and
Titans.
theories started appearing everywhere. One proposed that Azeroth, like other planets,
What's
was
up,
created by the Titans, not out of boredom, but as a way to contain chaos. Since the Titans embody order, and order cannot exist without chaos, Azeroth might have been a prison for the forces of disorder. Another, more compelling theory suggested that Azeroth itself is the final Titan. At the time, nobody knew what Titans truly were, how they were born, if they could die, or what their children might be. But
Right.
the idea made sense. It could explain why the Titans didn't destroy Azeroth when it became corrupted by the old gods. Instead, they built vast mechanisms and guardians to protect it from further harm. Looking back, those early speculations weren't too far from the truth. A few years later, World of Warcraft, Chronicles organized the entire cosmology of the Warcraft universe. We finally learned about Sargeras' tragic fall from grace, the existence of world souls, slumbering titan essences buried deep within certain worlds, and the ultimate revelation.
Interestingly enough, we know now like how Titans are kind of made, right? You kind of play around with a world soul a little bit and you can get it to become a Titan, like that whole influence of the world soul stuff. But the thing that we still don't know is if you have to influence a world soul to turn it into a Titan, who the hell was the first Titan? Right? Who was the first person to get to influence, right? Someone has to be there to influence it, right? Who was the original one? Now, everybody right away looks to Aman'Thul like, that guy is supposed to be the OG Titan. Is he actually a Titan? What was this? Is this all this guy's fault? He started this shit? And nobody really knows his origin, right? Like, it's like the chicken or the egg. Like, how could there have been a chicken before, or how can there have been an egg, that's laid on and sat on by a chicken if there is no chicken first to help it hatch, right? Wouldn't a chick just die if there wasn't a chicken around to kind of take care of it early on? And then where'd that first chicken come from? And then you get into the fucking well of, is it a god and all this stuff? I don't know. But Aman'Thul's origin is very interesting, and maybe the whole word of the last Titan is really just a play on words, meaning the first Titan. Like, we're going to deal with the first and he is the first and the last? We'll see.
Azeroth itself is one of them, a sleeping titan of immense potential and unimaginable power, and that is why the world has been so fiercely protected from the old gods and every other force that sought to destroy it. Illidan is one of the most fascinating characters from the early days of Warcraft. Sure, he may not be as iconic as Arthas, but still, every Warcraft player knows who Illidan Stormrage is. His past, however, is riddled with morally grey choices. During the War of the Ancients, in his desperate attempt to save Azeroth from the Burning Legion, Illidan betrayed his allies and temporarily sided with the demons. His goal was to obtain an artifact capable of sealing the Legion's portals. Once he succeeded, he returned to the Resistance and helped the Night Elves end the Legion's first invasion. Not long after, he attempted to restore the Well of Eternity in a small lake at Mount Hyjal using vials he had taken, an act that enraged his kin, who believed that meddling with arcane power could only bring disaster. Whatever one may think of his methods...
Yeah, when you think of elves, you might think of high elves and blood elves and how much they love magic, and even what are they called? Not the night elves, the The ones in Nighthold, in Suramar, whatever the fuck their race is called. I completely forget right now. But they love magic too. They're all crack addicts for magic. The elves that don't love magic are the night elves. Night elves have always hated magic. In fact, they banished the people that would eventually become the high elves because of their affinity for magic. They think it's a bad thing. So yeah, imprisoning Illidan because he dealt with arcane magic. Yeah, it falls right in line with night elves. They love nature shit. They want to be druids. They want to be shamans. They want to play with nature and do all that stuff. Actually, they can't be shamans, but they love naturistic stuff, hunters and stuff like that. They're not about that magic life. And
Illidan's
Illidan did.
actions ultimately brought Azeroth more good than harm. We met him again in Warcraft 3, where he was freed from the prison that had held him for 10,000 years, once more to fight the returning Burning Legion. Then, in the Burning Crusade, Illidan appeared not as an ally, but as the antagonist, the final boss of the Black Temple. Players began asking an important question. Was Illidan truly a villain? His methods were extreme, yes, but he had always been the Legion's enemy. The Burning
No, Sam, the night elves that used magic became the Chandrilar. They joined the night elves later. What? I'll have to look into
Crusade did little to explain his motives or the reasoning behind his actions. We knew that Illidan had become a tyrant, declaring himself Lord of Outland. He aided the Naga in draining the world's waters, enslaved or coerced demons into his service, led the Fell Orcs, and even attacked Shatrath, the last great city of a dying world. Yet despite all that, the Legion remained his enemy. Later lore revealed that Illidan was actively working to prevent the Legion's return, sabotaging their portals and even launching assaults on Legion-held worlds, attempting to destroy their strongholds.
Right here, it says it right here. You can check WoW Wiki. High elves, the Quel'Dorai, children of the noble birth in Darnashian, are a race of descended from the Night Elf Highborns, who left Kalimdor to settle in the Eastern Kingdoms, founding Quel'Thalas. There you go. They were originally Night Elves. And the thing that people that these highborn loved is they had an affinity for magic that wasn't really appreciated by Night Elfkin.
Over time, a theory began to take hold among the community. What if Illidan wasn't truly evil, but simply misunderstood? His ultimate goals seemed to align with those of Azeroth's heroes, to protect the world from the Legion. Many debates were sparked by this idea, especially since Blizzard's portrayal of him in the Burning Crusade had painted him as nothing more than a mad tyrant. But almost everyone agreed on one thing: that expansion suffered from weak storytelling.
True.
Key characters and events were left underdeveloped, creating more questions than answers.
Yeah, I'll be honest. I went into Burning Crusade as a 16-year-old, I think at the time, and I was excited to see this Illidan thing. I didn't know anything about it. I was like, who's this guy with these really cool weapons? And the story just never really came to fruition for me. I never did Black Temple, so I guess I got to kind of, limit my, opinion based on that. But at the same time, even through quest lines and everything else, there wasn't this string of Illidan storytelling throughout. Blizzard wasn't really good at storytelling, I guess, back then, in terms of this big, grand narrative. They had a lot of good little stories throughout the expansion and quests, but never really tied everything together with Illidan. Until
This was
really
one such
Legion.
example. His motives had to be clarified years later through retcons and supplementary lore. Illidan's story followed a similar path.
Well,
Some
Lich King,
fans
of course,
believed
was
that he
was
would
the best
eventually
story.
return, though no one knew how or when. They hoped Blizzard wouldn't let such a rich, complex character fade away as just another defeated raid boss. Others disagreed, insisting that Illidan's story had reached its natural end. One old blog post from the forums reflected this debate, quoting the final line from his death scene in the Black Temple: "Illidan falls and dies." The writer argued that the story was clear.
Not really.
He was dead, and even if Blizzard could bring him back, should they? Would players really want a cliché resurrection story? I was alive all along?
These Blizzard writers didn't realize we were going to B-res everybody in the game, every character. Imagine if he knew that Warlords of Draenor was going to come one day, where we go to an alternate timeline where everybody's still alive, and then we get Gul'dan coming back and everything into our timeline. Oh, man. He'd probably kicking and screaming, because he clearly didn't want to bring characters back. He didn't know what the future of WoW was going to be.
Blizzard themselves fueled the speculation when during a BlizzCon panel, they hinted that a redemption arc wasn't entirely off the table. The fanbase took
they
that
definitely
as a
changed
sign
things
that
in Legion
Illidan's
Arcane.
story might not be over. In 2016, the novel Illidan, World of Warcraft was released, aiming to fill the many blanks in his history. It shed new light on his motives and painted him as a far more morally complex figure than before. And then came Legion, the long-awaited return fans had dreamed of. There, Illidan re-emerged not as a villain, but as an anti-hero. Flawed, egotistical, and ruthless. Yes, but he was also a protector, driven by a vision of Azeroth's survival that few others could grasp. His methods were brutal, but his purpose was clear.
True.
He cared about the fate of Azeroth and all who called it home. And finally, a small theory, one that was never officially confirmed, but still managed to capture the community's imagination. The Horde. We know how it was formed, how it rose, fell, and rose again. But one basic detail about it still has no clear answer. Where did its banner come from? What is that central mark supposed to represent? And what are those shapes circling around it? Blades,
I've never
flames,
thought about it.
or something else entirely? If we take off the lore enthusiast's hat and put on a skeptic's one, it's fair to assume that when the developers were first designing the aesthetics of the Horde and the Alliance, they probably didn't think too deeply about the origins of their symbols. They just created something that looked cool, much like how the names of early Warcraft cities were often made up on the fly. But, as always, fans stepped in to fill the void. For a long time, a popular theory circulated that the Horde's banner dated back to the age of Draenor, when the orcs, unknowingly, encountered the influence of the Naru, mysterious beings of light. Ages ago, a Naru ship crashed on Draenor. The crash site became known to the orcs as Oshugun.
Yeah, Nagrand that's like basically all of Nagrand is a giant crashed Naru ship.
The power emanating from this so-called sacred mountain drew the attention of ancestral spirits, and the orcs came to revere the place for its strange energy. In truth, that energy came from Kura, the Naru resting within. According to the fan theory, the Horde's emblem may have been inspired by an ancient orc's crude depiction of what he saw or thought he saw of Kur's radiant form. Why the Naru? Because unlike most beings, they lack a humanoid shape. They appear instead as clusters of floating, symmetrical, crystalline geometry. So, if an orc had ever tried to sketch what he witnessed, the result could easily resemble the abstract shape we now recognize as the Horde symbol. The idea spread widely, and at one point, a fan even asked Chris Metzen whether there was any truth to it, or if the Horde's banner was simply random design work. Metzen laughed and joked that of course everything had been planned out from the very beginning, while the developers have never officially commented on
What did he say? He said, yeah, hold on, I can read it here. He said, in my mind, it's, yeah, that it's always been that cool and well thought out. So he basically said, we don't know what the fuck we were doing. We just made a cool logo. Yeah. I would take Metzen's word for it. That makes sense.
While the developers have never officially commented on the emblem's true origins, it's easy to imagine they wouldn't mind such an interpretation. Maybe someday we'll get a real story behind that mark. But for now, we can only enjoy the mystery and the creativity of the community that keeps the world of Warcraft alive.
Nice. Yeah, cool video. Yeah, conspiracy theories in WoW have always been a very relevant thing, something that the community's always enjoyed doing. I think of all these theories, the most interesting one to me is still the Dreadlords. I really want to see what happens with them going forward with the Void and the Light and everything else, and maybe they come out on the other end still there doing their things and we still don't know what's going on with them. Nice video here from Necro War.